So this is my mom in 1998. On a drive from New Jersey to Florida, she laughed and said, "You don't have to go all the way to Florida to get the baptism of the Holy Spirit. That happened to me in my own bedroom, my own living room." But subsequently, she was in a lot of different churches, and she actually invited me into and brought me into this certain church, and she never once mentioned the supernatural event that is like the most important thing. Jesus says, "It's better that I go away. If I don't go away, the Comforter will not come." So I was basically lied to by my mom, and I was invited into a Christianity that was missing not just that Holy Spirit thing, but a bunch of other things. Honesty in the home, to stay in a friendship with God. So this is why I don't trust Christianity. I don't trust your church when I come into your church. I see the people doing what I was doing, which is just doing some of the stuff. But the church people are used by Satan to literally just pretend and ignore specific parts of our interactive responsibility with God. Just because you don't feel like hearing certain truths doesn't mean that they don't exist.
Miracles anymore.
Now, I was kind of upset when I heard about this miraculous thing that had happened to you, because I thought, now, how could you have possibly sat among teaching that basically denied what actually happened to you? How did you reconcile that?
Not very well. I was a hypocrite because I at times remembered having spoken in tongues, and out of fear of not being like the rest of them, I didn't say, "But I know that this is possible and it's nothing wrong with it and it's scriptural," and I didn't take a stand. I think mainly because
out of fear of not being like the rest of them. Out of fear of not being like the rest of them. Out of fear of not being like the rest of them. We just watched a video where a whole line of people made a wrong decision, and then the person in the end of the line was invited to make a decision, and instead of choosing the right decision, they chose what everybody else chose, even though they had a conviction otherwise. This is actually a dark spirit presence. This is a revelation of the evil that saturates the universe and the human family. I mean, there's no reason to be hateful. But if you are not interested in being deeply concerned about what you might be avoiding and how you're not behaving properly because you don't want to be different than the others, it's a problem. It's a huge problem.
afraid of being pushed out of what I saw as a very mature as I was afraid of being pushed out of what I saw as a very mature discipling group and getting into charismania that I now had experienced.
So my mom was in a group that did really good outreach and really focused on the word and responsibilities. She was also visiting charismatic churches where there was less strictness and vigilance and honesty about sin. And in the charismatic church environment, she saw a lot of messing around with the marriage and with the things that Jesus taught. So she was going from one big box church to another in order to try to be somewhere where things seemed to be working right. And that is why Father has said to me, don't sit down with any ordinary Christians. Be a brand new family tree and assemble together those things that you have learned across all these years because of the influence of your parents and all the other people around you. I've learned the hard way. I was surrounded by a Christianity that was full of falsehood and missing things and goodies that Jesus taught that are helpful for us.
Another group I was in, and I don't want to mention its name, I was invited to several charismatic churches, and there was too much close hugging and things that looked to me like it was sexually derived, and that to leave this other group that had a holy love for each other would get me into problems that I had experienced that were sinful, and I didn't want to expose myself to that, even though they spoke in tongues. So I was neither fish nor fowl for a long while. I didn't dare, I thought, get into this hugging group that I watched from the corners of my eyes, and I saw the sexual interaction between men and women that weren't married and stuff as part of the worship. And I rebelled against it and recoiled, rather. I recoiled from that, so I stayed quietly in my non-charismatic, non-tongue-speaking group to be safe from the sexual sins. And
now,
I'm glad you...
And it's interesting because my mom in her life had incest in her life very early on, and she confessed to me that she wasn't tender and loving with her children because she was actually operating in fear out of any kind of sexual thing starting. So she was like extra cautious. She was fearful.
I never explained that to you before. In fact, I never thought it through clearly. But I had a gut reaction about this that was very, very strong.
Now also...
There's a lady looking at...
Okay, so... all right, now, do you remember very recently Pastor Coleman in Chattanooga talking about how, I think maybe he was talking just to myself or something, he was talking about how of his many years in the charismatic environments, he saw miracles happen, lots of them. But the problem was they were always happening in worship services. They weren't going on out